We started by activism within the Law Society. I became a council member of the Law Society, and we are, holding the government to account, and especially on matters of rule of law and human rights. And I realized that, just like I had in the Law Society activism, realized that it's not enough to complain about what is not being done. It is also important to enter there and do what you think should be done. So I was seeking to be a part of the solution. And I went to Parliament and continued to practice law. It is my legal practice that supported my politics. Just like being a magistrate or judge was a poorly paid job, when I went to Parliament December of 1992, my total salary was 5,000 plus allowances.
5,000 what?
20,000. My politics. I could attend 2 Harambes in a month, giving 20,000 in each, which is double my pay. That 20,000 they were paying me was not barely enough for the house I was living in, not to mention fueling my vehicle, educating my children, maintaining me. So it is my legal practice that anchored my politics until the pay got better. And the pay really got what you'd call better 10 years later, when Kibaki came in and when the report by the Oloaringo Committee was actualized, and pay for Parliament was improved and a Parliamentary Service Commission instituted. That is not to say that we stayed on 5,000 for the 10 years. There were improvements, and by the end of the 10th year, the salary had gone up to about 350,000. Yeah.
Something that I find interesting.
Yeah.
When you first...
the late Geoffrey Kareithi, my father, and he was a former head of the civil service. And we come from the same Kemunye village. So I'd seen him as I grew up. I was friends with his youngest daughter. We were in primary together before they moved over to Nairobi. Yeah.
So you were taking on...
As a leader within the legal profession, we were already taking on the powers that be on matters of rule of law, administration of justice. I was already a household name in Kenya because of the work I was doing. I felt equal to the task. It never occurred to me that I was biting more than I could chew. And I went to campaign with all the confidence and bravery of a youth.
How many times did the people of Gishugu elect you?
4 consecutive times. And I believe, had I gone for a parliamentary seat instead of the presidency in 2012, or for any local seat, I would still have been elected. But the presidency now, they were saying that I have beaten more than I can chew.
Why?
Ask the people. I think the social growth of a nation and all that, the perception, I do not think that people now see it that way. They've tried all they can, and they've seen what is happening. So I'll give it a last shot.
Would you say that your being a woman played a part?
Being a man performing the way I was performing for them in Gishugu, in Parliament and nationally for Kenya, I think without saying, I would have gone places. Yeah, so there's a bit of that. But even that is for me and the next woman to shatter the glass ceiling. We've done it before, we'll do it again. Yeah.
There are those who've argued, Martha, that one of the things that position and you are...
As of principle, I am on unbending, on following the rule of law, on upholding human rights. I am unbending on fighting corruption, issues of governance. On other matters, we can sit and discuss.
In fact, those who say what I've just said...
You are told in quotes that business people are complaining about your stand. But I just want to put this to the nation of Kenya, to fellow citizens. we can't have our cake and eat it. We want an organized country. We've got to follow the rules we have agreed upon. And the rules of this club called Kenya are the laws of Kenya. You start by bending a little. You'll end up with the impunity that is in Kenya today. Let the law apply to everyone without fear or favor. What is holding a nation like America together? And you can see they're not also in a good place, but they have systems that work. Trump was in court. He's a convict. He's been elected, but I am seeing him presenting slightly differently than before. He knows there are consequences, and everybody does. You have seen in South Africa, Zuma, who was president, being arraigned. Following rules is very important. Those countries I have named are not perfect. But when you have a system that works, it helps to remind people that there are beacons beyond which you cannot go. Your rights end where my rights begin and where the rights of the society begins. So we need to follow the rule of law. I'm stickler for the rule of law. And when I come again to you for votes, I'll be reminding you. We need to organize ourselves, to organize this beautiful and blessed country God gave us. We have enough to even pay our debts. We have enough to provide basic services as ordered by the Constitution to everybody. Yeah. But we have to manage it and follow the rules we agree on, the laws of Kenya. Cabinet, it was collegial. Cabinet meetings were open. You could offer your view. We discussed freely and agreed on matters. And President Kibaki left us to apply our best selves in the jobs he gave us. I was free to drive the reforms in the Ministry of Water, and I got his support in that. And so were other ministers. It was such a joy. When I left government, when I resigned on principle in 2008, my ministry, my work was being interfered with. There were roadblocks, and I felt that I had been given a djembe in the farm, and my hands had been tied behind my back. And I left. Yes.
So in those years,
yeah,
there was, a lot of camaraderie in cabinet in terms of everybody working together.
Yeah.
But at the same
but for cabinet. Because by the time we go to the referendum in 2005, the lines are drawn. There is a Kibaki faction and a Raila Odinga faction, which ended up being the No team, and the Kibaki team, the Yes team. So again, that now became, those difficulties came to cabinet, but were not that noticeable. And when the referendum failed, Kibaki sacked the entire government and returned those of us who were on his side and dropped completely Raila Odinga and his team. Yeah, I've let the disagreements get to where they were. And even when the referendum failed, perhaps we still should have sought to sit with our colleagues who were on the No team. Perhaps we should have persuaded the president that we sit with our colleagues in the No team. Remember, this is a government we had looked for together. We should have thought to bridge those differences in order to move the nation forward. The fact that we did not do that is a collective mistake we must carry. And that poison is what led to that toxic environment, to the 2007 post-election violence, and the campaigns from 2005 December, after the failing of the referendum and the new cabinet, to 2007. It was 2 years of building upon a toxic issue of refusing to anchor the agreement in the Constitution. He had said no way. He wanted to accommodate Raila and his group in government, but he wanted to be able to appoint and fire, just like before. But Raila and his group, having been fired in 2005, were not going to take it that way. They wanted it in the Constitution, and they won. It ended up being in the Constitution. but we did not agree to it because our instructions were not to agree. So when Kofi Annan realized that he'll not get a yes from us, we agreed on everything else, and he said the remaining issue is for the principals. So he went, sat with Kibaki, Raila, and in the presence of Jakaya Kikwete of Tanzania. And lo and behold, they agreed.
That's when he escalated
To the coalition government. And I think when I look back on it, Kibaki must have, in the back of his mind, realized that he had to accommodate Raila and his group in government. Why? We had a hung parliament, half-half. It becomes very difficult to administer. With his years of experience, he had foreseen he will accommodate them. Remember, he had appointed only half cabinet. I asked him why he's not completing the appointments. Akaniambia, wewe ngoja, you know?
So he knew.
Leeway, even when we made suggestions on how the coalition government would work, I helped him to craft what role the Prime Minister would play. And of course, we went and strengthened this with the group. Orengo advising Raila on the other side. Everything else we were able to agree, to advise and agree. But he didn't want the matter anchored in the Constitution. And he later personally agreed to it. And those who want to research, you can research. There's a time Kofi Annan had announced that there will be a coalition government. And he announced before we had agreed. I issued a statement saying we have not discussed it on the instructions of Kibaki. But Kibaki was so livid on the matter that even after I issued a statement, he himself issued his own statement from State House on the issue. So that was a no-go zone for him. How they got him to agree on a face-to-face meeting, only him could have told. And